Again, I've been lucky in that I've had several people who were really influential at critical times. My honours supervisor, Bill Lovegrove, was such an energetic, charismatic, he was an excited researcher, enthusiastically into the experimental work on dyslexia, and that was infectious. And so certainly admired him, and he has remained, until he passed away last year, a close friend and colleague all the way through that I could ask advice for. I owe so much to him because he, one, sort of helped me to learn about how to do research, but two, that suggestion that I apply for the Rhodes Scholarship really changed everything, because it took me to places where I could learn how to be a much stronger researcher. And it's hard to capture it. I mean, it sounds odd, but in Oxford and also in Berkeley, the expectation when you did research was not that you would get it right, that was just taken for granted. The expectation was that you'd be the best in the world when you did it. Terrified a lot of people, but it meant that you didn't ever relax, you worked hard on things. And having that expectation in the background makes you think more carefully about what you're doing, and there's no reason at all why people at UWA shouldn't think the same way. People are no more talented in these other places. They work really hard, but they expect to do important things, and so they think about whether what they're doing is sufficient to meet that criteria. So he was really important for getting me to the right place. Bruce Henning, my supervisor in Oxford, was fantastic. He is something you would never get away with these days. He would only supervise one PhD student at a time, because he didn't think that you could spend enough time with a student if you took more than one. So these are very different views of the world. And I had done some preliminary research. I actually started my project on something else, and then changed after a year, and had done some preliminary research. And Bruce was away, but when he came back, I showed him what I'd done and said what I wanted to do. And he was happy with that. And he said, how much maths have you done? And I was an English student, Bachelor of Arts, so I hadn't really done any. And so he said, okay, well, look, I'll supervise you, but maths lessons start tomorrow. And he gave me 2 hours of maths a day to get me so that I could get to understand calculus for 18 months. And so he just gave me so much and gave me the tools that allowed me to do so many other things that I would never have had without that. So, he was just very generous and giving of his time, and expected me to live up to that generosity by doing the work. But I'm forever grateful for that. One of the other things was he was a PhD student of Dave Green, who was the inventor of signal detection theory. And Dave Green came to Oxford on a sabbatical in my last year of my PhD. And he was also a really generous person. So he had a very balanced view of the world. He worked very hard, but then he retired and went on to other things and said, there's more to life than just doing this. While you're doing this, you have to give it everything. But there's family, there's community, and you should be part of that too. So all of those people were very influential and have remained so right till this day. That's a hard question. I I've always tried to take the best option at the point where I had to make the choice. And there were clearly other paths I could have taken. I could have been a school psychologist and stayed there, and there was a clear career path that you knew would unfold if you did that. But each time I've taken the option that looked like it would be the most interesting, the most exciting, and so I don't have any regrets about any of those choices. I know that the outcomes would have been different if I'd made different choices, but I don't know that I would change the strategy. I still think at every career point you ought to be asking yourself, what is the best option for me now? And sometimes that means going off and learning a new skill somewhere else. Sometimes it means shifting from research teaching role into an administrative role. And so those things vary a lot from person to person as you go through. But I don't think I would change anything. That's an easy one. I'm most proud of the students. I had over many years fantastic students, certainly the research students that go through the lab. And they have gone on to be heads of school in other places. They've gone on to do incredible research work in other places. Some of them have gone off into careers in industry. And they've made really important contributions. And that, I feel, was a real plus in my life, to be able to help students through that phase and get them set up to do other things. And so without a doubt, that's the highlight. There's always personal achievements and things that you feel proud about, but probably should be shy enough not to go on about. But they aren't as great as seeing a student win some accolade or do better than they expected they might. Yeah. Keep working hard, I think. I was by the time I got to university, I was pretty enthusiastic. And so I was one of those swotty types who sat up the front and talked to the lecturer. And I just couldn't get enough of it. So I just kept reading and reading. There were lots of colleagues that I would sit down with and talk through things. And I did some units. So I did a European literature unit where I was completely at sea, I remember. And there was a cohort of mature age women, terribly old. I suspect they were 30 or something at the time. And we used to sit down at coffee and talk through the books. And I was just young, I guess. And so I didn't know that much about how the world worked. And so it was really useful to have that extra input. But the thing that's critical is that you just keep working away at it. Most people can master most things if they really set their mind to it. And the thing that makes a difference is how many hours you put in. And there's really just no substitute for that. But once you put the hours in, it's incredibly rewarding, right? So you get paid back for the effort by the enjoyment you get from the topic.